Okay, now let's take a look at adding a home page to our application. So I'll just close all of this stuff down. And once again, we'll use the Angular CLI to create this component. So I'm going to say nggc home, and I'm going to skip -tests. And we know what this is going to do, so I'm just going to press return. No need for a dry run for this one. And we now have a home component. So let's just open up the home component template first of all, and home component HTML. And I'm just going to create the HTML we need for this. So I'm going to create a div with a class of container, and I'm going to give it some margin top -5. And I'm going to give it some style, a div with some style, and say text align and center. And inside this div, I'm just going to have an h1 tag and say find your match exclamation mark, or maybe not the exclamation mark. And then I'm going to add a paragraph tag with a class of lead and say come on in to view your matches. And all you need to do is sign up. And now I'll add the exclamation mark. And then we'll add a div. And this is going to be a very simple homepage, by the way, so don't worry about the possibility of creating many lines of HTML. That's not going to be the case. So I'll give this div a class of text-center, and inside here I'm just going to add a couple of buttons, and I'll give the first one a class of btn and btn-primary and btn-large for a large button, of course, and margin end of 2. And me-2 means effectively margin right, and I'm going to say register. And Bootstrap some time ago decided that they wanted to accommodate left to right and right to left languages, so they changed everything that used to be called MR or ML to MS for margin start and ME for margin end. But the underlying CSS doesn't abide by that system. In CSS world, we still use margin right and margin left. But that's the way they did it with Bootstrap. I'm just going to copy this button down one more time. And instead of button primary, I'm just going to make this btn info. And I'll just say learn more for that button. And just below the second to last div, I'll just add another div with a class of container. And I'll add a div with a class of row and another class of justify-content-center, and inside this div I'll just add another class with col-4, and then I'll add a paragraph tag and say register form goes here. And we don't have the form yet, but we'll create it soon. So let's take a look at the component code. And where's my link for the component? I don't have it. Okay, so let's just open up the actual component. Maybe I need to have opened the component before this functionality works. Okay, that does seem to be the case. So we're going to use our home component to demonstrate a couple of concepts with communication between Angular components. We have parent and child components, and we need to know how to communicate from the parent to the child and the child to the parent. And we're going to use the home component to demonstrate those concepts. But for the time being, I'm just going to have a register mode equal to false as a class property. And I'm going to have a function called register toggle. And I'm going to set this to the opposite of whatever register mode currently is. So I'm going to say this.registerMode equals not this.registerMode. So if it's currently true, then this will set it to false, and if it's currently false, then that will be set to true. And we'll use this as a conditional to display either the buttons or the form inside our home component. So just above the h1 tag, we'll use the built-in control flow once again for this. So I'm going to say @if and not register mode. Then inside this code block, we'll just add this div along with the h1 and paste that inside there. and we'll use the @else for the alternative, as in we are in register mode. Then I'll take the div with the container and paste that inside the else condition. And let's just tidy things up inside here. So that's how our component should be looking right now. And we're going to use our app component to display our home component. So let's open up the app component HTML, and we'll remove the unordered list, and instead we're just going to display our home component inside here. So I'm going to say app-home, add its closing tag, and then we should be able to use the quick fix to import the home component so it adds it to the imports of our actual app component. And just to double check that, we've got our home component here and we've got the corresponding imports at the top. So if we go and take a look at our browser, we now have a very simple but functional, more importantly, homepage. And if we click on register, well, nothing happens because we did not hook up the click event to the button. So back to the home component HTML, and where we've got our register button, let's just add the click event. So in parentheses we say click, and we're just going to utilize the register toggle. Now this is not really going to function as a toggle because we don't have a way to get back yet. But if we go and take a look at our component, when we click register, we see the register form goes here. And like I say, we don't really have a toggle because the only way I can get back is by refreshing the page just now. And what we'll take a look at next is what is going to go inside this placeholder, which will be, of course, a register form. And we'll take a look at that next.